Thanks, Dave. So we wrote with David Grayson and Mark Lee and myself wrote All In last year, or the latter part of last year, and it was around trying to define and understand where the future of business needs to go. What is the future of business leadership in the context of an environmental crisis, social challenges, and massive opportunities in the future, with the Sustainable Development Goals looming over us as a real opportunity to create a better world, and the role of large global companies in that journey.
Excellent. And now, is this your 35th book, David, or tell me a little bit about your involvement here?
So this is book number 7, and what we set out to do was to take a really great resource, which is 20 years worth of annual Globescan sustainability leaders surveys, and understand more about what had made the companies that experts across the world thought were the leaders at different stages from 1997 onwards, what made them the leaders then, and how have the expectations of what constitutes excellence changed. And we boil that down to what we think are the 5 key attributes for business leadership going forward.
Excellent. I should read that book. I guess, thanks for the copy, first of all, and I will read it on the plane home. I have not read it yet, but I'm thrilled to have brought you guys together. Now, there's a phenomenon that 3BL Media identified, and plenty of other people have, but we put on a conference about it last October, brands taking stands. And so this corporate activism is certainly alive and well. We've seen Microsoft and IBM and companies like Salesforce take a very active stance. For example, in Salesforce's case, when there was the religious freedom bill, quote unquote, in Indiana, and they said, we own a very large company here, Exact Target. We could either expand in Indiana or move our employees elsewhere if you don't sort of match what our values are. And the NCAA was also in Indiana. They took a stand on that issue, and we're seeing it now with diversity, and we're seeing it now with gender rights, and so is that covered in All In?
Very much so. We call it advocacy, and we think that advocacy is speaking out and speaking up for social justice, for sustainable development. So we see it very clearly with things like the We Are Still In movement, which is a very, very powerful expression
on climate change.
On climate change, right. Absolutely. So we think that advocacy is something very different to lobbying, because it's something which is much more long-term. It's in the interests of wider society. Ultimately, it will also be in the interests of the business as well, but over a longer-term time horizon. And of course, to be effective and authentic, advocacy by a company and by a CEO has to fit in with what the company itself is doing, what it stands for, not just what it says, but actually what it also does, what it lives. And we think it has to relate back to the company's commitment around sustainability, to what its purpose is, to what its plan is for sustainability. And also, it will be very important to build on some of the collaborations that most leading businesses now have in the field of sustainability.
Interesting. Has your research, which you kindly share with the community every year at conferences like this at Globescan, Chris, have you picked up on this brand advocacy or brands taking stands movement is actually moving the needle on corporate reputation?
I think it's one of the increasingly differentiating elements of why experts look to certain companies as leaders. And the leader survey, which we just released today for 2018, shows that Unilever increased its mind share again among global experts on sustainability. And a good deal of that is their advocacy, which is quite strategic. It's not, as David said, something that's sort of a knee-jerk reaction. It's quite focused and intentional, in line with their sustainable living plan and driving systemic change. And this is the key element. It's not a one-off issue, but it's a systemic challenge, and that's the exciting impact.
And they do it with a sense of purpose and as well as humor, though, because I heard Paul Pullman recently do the joke about their new Ben & Jerry's flavor. It was a combination of mint and peach, and it's called impeachment. So I love the way that he delivered that to a room of Wall Street analysts. Actually, these guys laughed, so it was good.
It's good.
Anyway, I appreciate you guys spending time with me. And All In is my airplane reading for the ride home. I am taking a red eye, so I may doze off in the first couple of chapters. But anyway, thanks again for coming out and talking to me today. Thanks, David.
Thanks very much.
Okay.